In the quiet hours before dawn, the faint hum of a car engine echoed near the Foix Reservoir. Moments later, flames pierced the darkness, an inferno consuming metal, smoke, and secrets. When firefighters arrived, they expected an accident. What they found instead was a nightmare. A body burned beyond recognition, sealed inside the trunk of a car. The victim was a police officer. Someone who had sworn to protect the city now lay lifeless, betrayed by those closest to him. But who could have done something so cold, so calculated? As investigators traced the final hours of his life, what began as a tragic discovery would unravel into one of Spain's most shocking stories, filled with love, jealousy, and a deadly conspiracy that no one saw coming. If you're a fan of true crime and criminal investigations, you won't want to miss our new book, The Ultimate Book of Serial Killers: 180 Files of the World's Most Notorious Murderers, now available on Amazon. You can also purchase the PDF version directly from our website for instant download. You'll find the link in the video description and in a pinned comment. Now, let's dive into today's case. Pedro Rodriguez was born in Barcelona into a troubled and divided family. His relationship with his father and sister was distant, leaving him emotionally tied only to his mother and his brother, Juan Antonio. When their mother passed away, Juan Antonio became Pedro's main source of support, both emotionally and within the family. From a young age, Pedro had an intense passion for motorcycles and sports. Athletic, energetic, and determined, he pursued a career that reflected his love for movement and discipline. In 2008, he joined the traffic division of the Guardia Urbana, the police force that operates exclusively within the city of Barcelona. Meanwhile, his brother followed a similar path, training to become a police officer as well. For context, in Spain, the Guardia Urbana handles municipal duties within Barcelona, while the national police cover the rest of the country. In 2014, Pedro married a woman named Patricia, and together they had a son. But the marriage was short-lived. Within a few years, Patricia began to notice changes in her husband's behavior: coldness, emotional distance, and rumors that he was seeing another woman. Friends told her they had seen Pedro with someone else, a woman with 2 daughters. The couple began to argue constantly, and by 2016, Pedro asked for a divorce. He denied there was another woman involved, but soon after, he moved to another town to live with Rosa Peral, the woman who would later be at the center of a shocking criminal case. Rosa was also a member of the Guardia Urbana, and like Pedro, she had 2 children from a previous marriage. When Pedro's body was later discovered, the police quickly contacted his ex-wife, Patricia, who confirmed that their relationship had ended long before and that he was now living with another woman from the same police force. Investigators soon learned that Pedro had been temporarily suspended from duty for assaulting a man who had jumped a traffic control point, an incident captured on security cameras. Rosa, on the other hand, was on medical leave at the time, reportedly suffering from depression. When the police reached out to Rosa for questioning, she said the last time she had seen Pedro, They had argued and he had left the house. She claimed he often disappeared for days after their fights and that his temper could be volatile. On May 4th, officers informed her that Pedro had been found dead. Her reaction was surprisingly calm, and when asked to come to the station, she refused, saying she couldn't leave her daughters alone. She promised to come the next day, and from that moment, the investigation began to focus on her. When Rosa arrived at the station on May 5th, she gave her first statement, suggesting that Pedro's death might be linked to the mafia, a theory investigators found strange and baseless. In her second statement, she admitted that she and Pedro had been in a relationship for about 8 months. She said that 2 days before his body was found, they had argued over Pedro's jealousy toward her ex-husband. After the fight, he supposedly left home, but later sent her a message apologizing and declaring his love. According to Rosa, that was the pattern of their relationship: arguments, jealousy, silence, and reconciliation. Because of this, she said she hadn't been alarmed when he disappeared for 48 hours. However, her story did little to help the police. It only painted Pedro as a jealous and impulsive man. Days after his funeral, Rosa returned to the police station to give another statement, this time accusing her ex-husband, Ruben, of being the killer. She described him as controlling and jealous, implying that he might have murdered Pedro out of rage. Ruben, when questioned, admitted that their marriage had been full of fights, but he insisted that his jealousy had been justified. Rosa, he said, had been unfaithful multiple times, first with a co-worker named Albert and later with Pedro. He explained that he had long stopped caring about her romantic life and had never confronted her lovers. His alibi placed him at work at the time of the crime, a claim confirmed by his colleagues and supervisors. With his innocence established, police attention shifted back to Rosa and to the other man in her life, Albert Lopez. Rosa Peral was born on March 27, 1981, in Barcelona. Her father, Francisco Paco Peral, was well known among those close to her, while her mother had passed away recently after complications from surgery. Rosa and Ruben met when they were still very young. In 2010, their first daughter was born, and 2 years later they married and had their second. But Rosa's private life was far from stable. According to Ruben, Rosa began an affair with her colleague Albert Lopez while they both worked at the Guardia Urbana. Their connection started in 2012 when they were assigned to patrol together. By 2013, just a year after the birth of her second daughter, Rosa and Albert began a secret relationship. Even after she separated from Ruben and started dating Pedro, she continued seeing Albert in secret. He had been her lover through 2 consecutive relationships. During her marriage, Ruben had often tried to look the other way, pretending not to notice her infidelities. But there were moments that made denial impossible, like when Rosa attended police events with Albert, openly acting like a couple while still married. Eventually, Ruben could no longer take it, and they separated. But despite their long affair, Rosa and Albert never made their relationship official. She wanted something serious, but he refused. Albert didn't want children and had no interest in becoming stepfather to Rosa's 2 daughters. Around this time, Rosa began seeing Pedro Rodriguez. Unlike Albert, Pedro wanted to build a family with her, and he showed genuine care for her daughters. Even then, Albert couldn't let go. He tried to move on, dating other women, but his obsession with Rosa persisted. Eventually, he reached out to her again, and they met in secret, setting the stage for a tragic chain of events that would soon shock Spain. Albert Lopez had no idea that Rosa was in a relationship with Pedro Rodriguez. To him, she was single, just another woman he was casually seeing. But when he found out that she was actually living with and engaged to Pedro, he was furious. Feeling betrayed, Albert distanced himself and decided to embrace the single life. He started posting photos on social media, vacations, parties, nights out surrounded by other women, as if to prove that he had moved on. Yet, despite his efforts, he couldn't stay away. A few weeks later, he contacted Rosa again, and they began seeing each other in secret. In April 2017, Albert surprised Rosa with a strange and unexpected proposal. One afternoon, while she was sitting on a terrace with friends, he appeared out of nowhere, tossed a small box toward her, and said, "Think about it." Inside was a ring. It was hardly a romantic gesture, more impulsive than sincere, but it revealed his conflicted feelings. Rosa, who had told friends she was already committed to Pedro, didn't reject him. She accepted the ring, took intimate photos wearing it, and sent them to Albert. What shocked her friends later was that in another photo she appeared wearing two engagement rings, one from Pedro on one hand and one from Albert on the other. Rosa's friends, aware of her double life, often asked which man she would ultimately choose. Her answer was blunt. She preferred Pedro because he was better in bed and dressed better. Eventually, Pedro discovered romantic messages between Rosa and Albert, and that's when things began to spiral. As the investigation unfolded, police dug deeper into both Rosa and Albert's professional records. Rosa's file didn't show any incidents of aggression, but it did reveal a controversial episode from her early years in the Guardia Urbana. When she was just 23, shortly after joining the force, someone hacked her email and distributed an intimate photo of her to all her colleagues, a clear case of revenge porn. She filed a complaint over a year later, accusing a sub-inspector of being responsible. However, the accused man's lawyer claimed that during that year, Rosa had continued to have a casual sexual relationship with him and other officers, even while married. Albert, on the other hand, had a far darker record. In August 2014, he was allegedly involved in the death of a street vendor. On that day, Rosa was patrolling with Albert and another officer when they stopped the vendor during a police control. The man reportedly became aggressive, stabbing Rosa and striking her in the head before trying to flee. Albert chased him, and moments later, the vendor fell down a steep slope. He was taken to a hospital, where he died from his injuries. Albert claimed it was an accident, that the man had simply slipped, but his version didn't entirely convince investigators. With Albert's reputation for being short-tempered and violent, there were suspicions he had pushed the man. Unfortunately, without evidence, the case was officially ruled accidental. Years later, when Pedro's murder investigation began, that violent history resurfaced. Detectives seized the phones of Rosa and Albert to examine messages, calls, and GPS locations in the days before and after the crime. What they found was deeply disturbing. On May 1, 2017, the geolocation data from all three phones, Pedro's, Rosa's, and Albert's, placed them at the same location, the house where Rosa and Pedro lived together. That same night, Rosa and Albert spoke by phone, and 4 hours later, Albert made a brief call from a prepaid number before showing up at the house around 2 a.m. The following day, May 2nd, their phones once again appeared in the same area, this time near the home of Rosa's ex-husband, Ruben. It was also the area where investigators would later find Pedro's burned car with his body inside. The coincidence raised immediate suspicion that Ruben might be involved, but his phone records showed he wasn't near the scene, confirming his alibi. Meanwhile, one of Rosa's friends told investigators something even more alarming. 2 days after Pedro's charred body was discovered, Rosa hosted a dinner party at her home. The friend, her partner, and even Albert were there. Everyone acted relaxed, as if nothing had happened, as though a man hadn't just been found dead in horrifying circumstances. Even worse, according to the friend, Rosa and Albert behaved affectionately, like a couple. Another colleague of Rosa's later testified that after that dinner, she confessed to him that she was afraid of Albert. Around the same time, one of Pedro's close friends, a lawyer, refused to represent Rosa when she asked for help. He was already assisting Pedro's family and couldn't defend someone under suspicion in the same case. As pressure mounted, Rosa returned to the police station once again. This time, she changed her story. No longer pointing at her ex-husband, she directly accused Albert Lopez, her former lover, her secret companion, and now, her alleged accomplice. It defied logic. If she truly believed Albert had murdered Pedro Rodriguez, why would she share a meal with him instead of running to the police? The only thing that slightly supported her new accusation was that she had once told a colleague she was afraid of Albert, but even that, investigators suspected, might have been a calculated move to build herself a defense. Eventually, police arrested both Rosa and Albert and searched their homes. In Albert's apartment, nothing overtly suspicious was found, but his car was spotless, unnaturally clean, and filled with the overpowering scent of air freshener, cleaning products, and gasoline. In Rosa's home, luminol tests revealed faint traces of blood on the walls, towels, and various items throughout the house. Investigators also noted fresh paint on certain areas, and that she had recently gotten rid of a sofa and redecorated a specific room, as if attempting to conceal something. Inside a wardrobe, police found Pedro's police badge, ID card, and phone. While it made sense that his belongings would be in the home he shared with her, what raised alarms was that text messages had been sent from that phone after the date Pedro was believed to have died, May 2nd. Someone was clearly pretending to be him. According to forensic evidence, Pedro was killed between 3 and 6 a.m. on May 2nd. That same morning, the GPS locations of all three phones, Rosa's, Albert's, and Pedro's, matched at the couple's home. Later that day, their phones were tracked again near Rubain's house, the area where Pedro's burned car was later found. 2 days afterward, when police first visited Rosa, she refused to let them inside, saying her daughters were asleep. She also showed officers a WhatsApp exchange that she claimed was from Pedro, messages investigators later determined had been sent after his death. When police finally brought Rosa and Albert in for questioning, they used a technique meant to expose contradictions. Each time one of them made a statement, officers relayed it to the other to see how they would react. As expected, both pointed fingers. Rosa blamed Albert, and Albert blamed Rosa. It was evident that one, or perhaps both, were lying. In 2018, a new piece of testimony emerged. A neighbor, who had secretly been romantically involved with Rosa, told police that on the night of May 2nd, he had messaged her asking about the sound of a chainsaw coming from her house. He admitted he hadn't reported it earlier because of their affair. He didn't want to expose the relationship. He also revealed that whenever Pedro got angry and left home, Rosa would call him over, implying that their encounters often happened while Pedro was away. Investigators searched for the chainsaw, but never found it. By February 2020, 3 years after the crime, the long-awaited trial began. It was one of the most followed cases in Spain, filled with sensational twists and salacious revelations. The hearings were lengthy, and because of the COVID-19 pandemic, many sessions were held in empty courtrooms. Rosa herself missed several sessions after testing positive for the virus. On the stand, she claimed that Albert was the one who had killed Pedro. She said that in the early morning hours of May 2nd, he arrived at her home, took an axe, and attacked Pedro while she ran upstairs to protect her daughters. Rosa insisted she was a victim, that Albert was violent and had even hit her in the past during police outings. She said he forced her to help clean the crime scene afterward, threatening her if she refused. Albert, for his part, told a completely different story. He claimed that when he arrived, Pedro was already dead and that Rosa asked him for help getting rid of the body. He said she manipulated him, that she wanted to frame her ex-husband Ruben, and that's why they went to his neighborhood to burn Pedro's car. In doing so, Albert effectively confessed to participating in the cover-up, sealing his own fate. Perhaps the most chilling testimony came from Antonia, the stepmother of Rosa's daughters. She told the court that the children had seen their mother covered in blood and that they had watched her lead Pedro down the stairs that night. The girls described him as disoriented, walking like a robot, suggesting he might have been drugged. Investigators believed he was likely sedated with medication he took for sciatica, pills that were missing from the house. A fellow inmate of Rosa's later testified that Rosa had privately confessed to her, saying she had indeed given Pedro the medication dissolved in water to calm him down after a heated argument. Once he was incapacitated, she and Albert carried out the killing. That night, the two left the house in separate vehicles, Rosa driving her car, Albert behind the wheel of Pedro's. They drove to the Foix Reservoir, where they set Pedro's car on fire with his body inside. In the end, investigators concluded that the motive behind the murder was twofold. Rosa and Albert wanted to eliminate Pedro so they could continue their affair without interference, and they also hoped to frame Rosa's ex-husband Ruben, with whom she was locked in a bitter custody battle over their daughters. But their plan unraveled. Prosecutors demanded 25 years in prison for Rosa and 24 for Albert, arguing that they had drugged Pedro to render him helpless before killing him. The evidence pointed clearly to premeditation and cruelty. In 2021, the court delivered its verdict. Both Rosa Peral and Albert Lopez were found guilty of the murder of Pedro Rodriguez. They were also ordered to pay nearly €885,000 in compensation to Pedro's family. Rosa received 25 years in prison for aggravated murder due to her relationship with the victim. Since she had been incarcerated since 2017, she had already served about 6 years at the time of sentencing. Albert was given 20 years and had been behind bars for the same duration. During his imprisonment, Albert reportedly took part in rehabilitation programs and expressed remorse, acknowledging his role in the crime, an attitude that could grant him limited prison privileges. Both Rosa and Albert attempted to appeal their sentences, but Spain's Supreme Court dismissed their requests. Still, Albert's confession opened a small possibility for Rosa's case to be reconsidered in the future. Even behind bars, Rosa Peral's life continued to attract public attention. Reports surfaced of her engaging in relationships with other inmates, both men and women. One woman claimed Rosa had become obsessed with her, while another inmate said she overheard details about the affair. On the legal side, her earlier revenge porn case, filed years before the murder, ended with the sub-inspector she accused being acquitted. Even though Rosa had submitted a recording in which the man allegedly admitted to leaking her intimate photo, the court ruled that the audio was inconclusive and that the computer used for the leak was never found. And remember Albert's earlier involvement in the death of the street vendor known as El Boniato. According to a fellow inmate, Rosa allegedly confessed that Albert had indeed killed the man, and that afterward he told her he had done it for her saying no one would ever hurt her again. In more recent years, Rosa launched a lawsuit against Netflix over the series Burning Body, which dramatized her case. She demanded 30 million euros in damages, claiming the show violated her daughter's privacy and harmed her reputation as a mother. However, because her ex-husband holds legal custody of the children, only he has the authority to pursue such a claim. From prison, Rosa also participated in interviews for the documentary The Tapes of Rosa Peral, where she continued to insist on her innocence. She denied hiding assets from the court, saying she had merely transferred money to her father to prevent it from being seized, not to conceal it. Today, Rosa's daughters, now teenagers aged 15 and 13, still visit her regularly, always accompanied by their grandfather, Rosa's father. Despite everything, he continues to stand by her, convinced of her innocence. Rosa Peral maintains that she was framed, that she loved Pedro and could never have harmed him. Yet to this day, the courts, investigators, and most of Spain remain convinced of the opposite. Her father's unwavering faith in her innocence stands as one of the few remaining fragments of loyalty in a story built on lies, betrayal, and irreversible tragedy. Thanks for tuning in to Unreal True Crime. If you're intrigued by mysteries from around the world, check out our new channel, Latin Crimes, where we dive into the gripping true crime stories of Latin America. Don't miss out. Subscribe now for more thrilling investigations.